Despite popular belief, chickens, pigs, goats, and cows aren't the only animals on farms. Amid this wide variety of livestock, some farmers care for the heaviest land animals in North America. These animals aren't buffaloes or bulls, they're bison. On this edition of the Paw Report, we'll talk to David and Kathleen Ruhter from Ruhter Bison about raising such an animal and see exactly how much work it takes to care for these massive mammals. Stay with us.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
Okaw Vet Clinic in Tuscola and Dr. Sally Foote remind you to properly take care of your pets and are happy to help support the Paw Report on WEIU. Okaw Vet Clinic located at 140 West Sales Street in downtown Tuscola. More information available at okawvetclinic.com.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report. We're in a very unique location talking about a very unique animal, and we're at Ruhter Bison, and we are with Kathleen and David Ruhter, and we are so glad that you've joined us. Not only that, but for inviting us to this beautiful farm, which we're going to talk about in this episode. Thank you for joining us.
We're glad to have you here.
Now, bison are often mistaken for buffalo, and they've got a lot of history. This animal has a lot of history. They roam the Great Plains, and actually were responsible for shaping the ecology of the Great Plains. David, we'll start with you.
Yeah, the animals themselves have an impact on the ground, on the land, and the plant selection, and as far as maintaining the prairies between fire and bison. That was the main reason we had so much grassland in North America. When the first explorers came over here, or European explorers, they called them buffalo because they were used to the African buffalo or Asian buffalo. And that name kind of stuck, but they're actually bison. And now we distinguish the bison from the buffalo, which is the water buffalo. And especially regarding marketing of the meat, you'll see buffalo products in the grocery store. That's actually water buffalo. And the bison are supposed to be labeled bison products, and anything else is water buffalo. Mm-hmm. So, and we get a lot of people asking, well, do you have buffalo cheese? No, you can't get milk from these animals. That's water buffalo, you know. And but it confuses the consumer a lot.
As I mentioned, we're here at a beautiful location in Murdock, Illinois, which is Douglas County. And tell us a little bit about your farm, the ground that we're sitting on right now to do this interview. Lots of history here, and we'll get to it, but these animals, they need a lot of land. So tell us about the history of your farm.
So this farm was originally a coal mine, and it was decommissioned back in the 80s and reclaimed by the state, and had been laying fallow for several years, and somebody came out and tried to have like a horse ranch, shooting ranch type thing out here, and that just didn't work because the land is over a coal mine. They can't build on it, they can't use crops on it, so it was kind of a unique purpose. Land in this area is kind of cheap. Land in this area is kind of hard to find because of the corn and the soybean crops. So we were very lucky when we were looking for land to come across this. And we love the bison because we're trying to bring bison back. We're kind of trying to reintroduce them to America, and we felt like reclaiming this coal mine and putting it to a purpose of bringing these animals back was perfect for us.
That leads into my next question to the both of you is, you're both career-oriented people. You both work full-time. What in the world led you to the bison?
Well, I had worked in zoos for about 20 years. And when I got out of the zoos, it was like, I've got a lot of knowledge on how to handle big animals, but you can't make any money off of zebras or giraffes. And so in a moment of insanity, I asked Kathleen, I said, what about bison? You know, that's something that's consumable and we can sell the meat, and she foolishly agreed. And so that kind of led us down the path of where we're at now, you know, that normally she puts the brakes on any crazy idea I have, but this time she actually pushed me in that direction.
So Kathleen, once you said yes, my guess is that's when the research had to begin.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't, I know I couldn't just launch into saying, okay, I'm going to have a farm and I'm going to have bison on
Yeah.
it. You have to start doing some homework and learning about the animal to
Yes.
commit to it.
Well, he had worked with bison at some of the zoos, so we had a basic idea, or he did, of what it would take. We had relatives out in Wyoming and we had eaten the bison meat and we had seen the huge herds out there, and we just kind of fell in love with the animal. Finding the land was the big problem. Once we found it, then he was able to kind of guide us which kind of fencing, because it's not just standard fencing, and which kind of corrals and what their special needs were. One of my demands was that we raise something that wasn't high maintenance, and I didn't want to have to come out here in the middle of a snowstorm to pull a calf. And the bison have been living on their own for thousands of years, and he assured me they could continue to live on their own without me being here in a snowstorm. They actually love the cold weather, they don't mind the heat, so they're pretty much a low maintenance animal, and they are still a wild animal. So if there are problems with calving or anything like that, you just let nature take its course.
And we don't worry about coyotes.
We don't have a problem with
No,
coyotes.
I was going to say you probably don't.
I have one of the largest coyote populations in the county right here.
Take us on a typical day though here. You know, there is things that have to be done. You mentioned fencing. You know, when you got the land, there had to be some things that had to be done. There's feeding that goes on. Take us through a day.
If you're into raising livestock, you're really a pasture management program. And if you don't have good pastures, your animals aren't going to do well. So all of our focus, and that's been the steepest learning curve for us. The animals are easy, or were easy for us. It's the pastures that are the challenge. You know, trying to deal with the weather and the weeds and maintaining a viable grassland, and not overpopulating with too many animals. That's where we've enjoyed the most success we've had, developing some good pastures.
And your operation here, your herd is really a family affair. You have children that are involved, and you also take a very strong interest in promoting outreach and education of this beautiful animal.
Yes, so we have two sons, and they have both become as involved as they can with their own lives. We have two daughter-in-laws. One's an environmental toxicologist, the other a civil engineer, and they have both helped us in reclaiming the land, using their expertise into what needs to be done to get the land up and running. So that's been very beneficial. And the boys, of course, are good manpower when we need it.
That's right. Let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of this animal, and you two know it probably better than anyone. What is the animal like? What are some of the characteristics? I think once you start talking about some of these, I think our viewers will be really interested to know some of these things. I know when I was doing my research, at least one of them, I thought, my head kind of turned like, really? That animal can do that?
Jump that high?
Yeah, jump that high, run that fast. So, David, we'll start with you. Let's talk about their coat, their eyesight, their hearing.
Well, they are basically still wild animals, and they've been on farms only for about 100 years. So they're very accustomed to the winter months. And one study that was done back in the 70s, they took a Scottish Highlander calf, a yak, and a Angus calf and a bison calf. They were all 6 months old, to see how tolerant they were of cold. And as the temperatures drop, the metabolism changes on the animal. And with the cattle and the Scottish Highlander, you get to 14 degrees and their body temperature starts to adjust. With the bison, they went down to 20 below zero, and the calf was still not acclimating to the cold weather. He was not feeling the cold because they've got such dense hair. They know how to adjust their body postures in the cold weather. And 20 below was as cold as their test would go. So these animals are just extremely well acclimated for winter months. They calve in the spring, in April and June. So by the time winter comes around, our calves are fully grown. We don't worry about November, December calves because we don't have them. And they'll eat anything. They are really good. They have their preferences on the grasses that they'll eat. They love orchard grass, and even though we've got a lot of tall grass out here right now, if you actually look down into the grass, you'll find the orchard grass has been grazed down to nothing, And they move a lot. Unlike the cattle that'll pretty much stay put when they graze, these animals will go the whole half mile from one end of our farm to the other in a day, and then back to the other end without thinking anything about it. They're very acclimated for mobility, and as far as speed goes, people talk about how fast these animals are. We've had horses out here with them, and they can outrun a good cow pony.
That's what I was saying when I was reading about the animal. I was like, wait, these big massive animals can run this fast?
Over
yes,
this broken terrain, yes.
Yeah, about 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, I've tried driving my truck over this stuff at 35 miles an hour, and it's jaw-breaking. But these animals just fly when you get them excited. And that the key to our farming and our fencing is we try not to get them excited. If they can't see over the fence, they won't tend to go over it. They could jump all of our fences if they wanted to, but they haven't because we don't give them a reason to. And if they psychologically, if they can't see over it, it's just too much effort for them to go over unless they really want something on the other side.
Seeing versus hearing, two different things. They don't see real well, or do they?
Well, their smell is excellent. Their vision is, they do have 360 degree vision because of the eyes being on the side of their heads. It's better than a human's, but it's not as good as a dog's. So they do use vision, smell, and body postures. The mothers, when they're trying to call their calves or when they're looking for their calves, you'll hear kind of a low grunt coming from them, and then the calves will respond back, and the mothers know that sound, but then they know the smell too. So we don't have calves get too far from moms, but we'll have some wander down the path a little bit. And they're also, when males are getting aggressive with each other, there's kind of a gurgly, grinding sound.
What is their temperament like? I noticed, when we were setting up shop here on your ground, they were all kind of huddled behind us, and they've slowly migrated away from under that shade tree. What is their temperament like, and does the tail tell something about this animal?
You have to look at their entire body posture. The tail, the head position, whether it's up, down, the sounds that they make, all of those are indications of what the animal is thinking. If you have a little question mark on the tail, you don't want to go anywhere near that animal. He's upset. If a dog runs out there into the herd, you'll see all their tails go up right away, and they kind of get into a defensive posture. But you have to really learn to read the animal to know what's going on. And we don't walk out there with them. If we go out there, we'll go out in a truck or another vehicle, a tractor. And I don't like to get very far away from that. They've never shown any desire to hurt us, but when a 2,000-pound animal hits you even accidentally, it's going to hurt. It's not going to hurt him, that's for sure. So we respect their size, and they have a space. As the animals form in their herd, there's a little bubble around them that you don't want to penetrate, and other animals will not penetrate that bubble. For the dominant animals, that bubble is much bigger. For the more subordinate animals, it's much smaller, and you certainly don't mess with the mom's calf. Mm-hmm. The mothers are very, very protective, and even the bull is protective of the calf. He'll position himself between us and the truck whenever we go out there when there are new calves on the ground. And the social dynamics of these animals, to me, is one of the most interesting aspects of working with them.
And that's just something you learn and you've observed and watched.
Yeah, and there's a matriarchal hierarchy within the group. Certain cows are dominant and their calves are dominant, and they tend to lead the herd. If you can get the dominant cow to move to another pasture, the rest of the herd will follow. The bull just kind of goes along for whatever the cows want to do, you know.
What is the significance, and I probably should have asked this when we were talking about other characteristics, the big hump. The big hump behind the neck. There is some significance to that.
Well, there's several theories, and the Park Service will tell you it's so they can push the snow out of the way during the winter months, and it does work that way. But basically, these animals have a huge head, and so those are muscle attachments to support that head. And unlike cattle, where the center of the weight is pretty much in the middle of the back, with bison, the center of the weight is right behind the front legs, because of that big hump in the head, which allows them to spin very, very quickly. And if you get them in a tight position, or if you've seen videos of them defending themselves from wolves, they'll spin very quickly, unlike cattle can. And if you're trying to work them on a horse, that can be very dangerous. But that hump there is to help balance the head.
Muscles.
And it's all muscle attachments. Yeah. It also makes good roast.
Kathleen, what about population of the bison? You know, first, I guess nationally, because as you said earlier, it's something that you advocate and you're trying to bring the bison back. Population nationally, and then population in Illinois.
So just a bit of history. Back in 1774 was when the bison was first recognized and named. And it was traders that would come out and name them. In the late 1700s, there were about 60 million bison in the United States and Canada. By 1880, there were 500. And by the early 1900s, there were very, very few, 20 to 30, and it was because of the fur traders and the hunters that would come out. Bison are not aggressive, and the way they killed them was they'd be on a train and they'd just shoot, and the bison don't run from gunshots, so it was pretty easy picking for them. So the National Bison Association over the years, and those of us who love the animal, want to bring this animal back. It's America's animal. In fact, in 2016 it was named the national mammal for the United States. And yes, you can eat the national mammal. People ask about that. But the idea is to bring him back. The association would like to have 1 million animals by 2020. Most of the animals at this point, over 90% of them, are on private ranches and farms. In the United States and Canada, I think there's over 500,000 animals right now. There's question about bison genes and cattle genes, and are they pure bison? Most of them, 95% of them, are not. They have a cattle gene in them, because when the numbers got so slow, one of the ways that people tried to bring them back was by crossbreeding them with cattle. So we don't advocate for that now. The Bison Association and bison producers do not like that. We want the animal to be pure. We've had a couple of our animals tested, and we have a couple that are pure bison. If you look at the herd, you can't tell. They really don't worry about that right now. So
genetically, there is about 1.5% to 2% gene of cattle in some of the bison. And if you're of European descent, you have about 3% Neanderthal gene. So that's by comparison. You have more Neanderthal than our bison have cattle genes.
That's a good point, David. Thank you. Now, what about bison herds and farms in Illinois? And you can talk about how many you have in your actual herd. I can't remember if I've asked you that or not, but statewide and then here on your
There are about 30 producers here in Illinois, and almost all of them are small producers. There's a few of them that will have a couple of hundred head. We've got 36, which is considered a medium-sized herd by bison standards. You don't find in Illinois, obviously, the large ranches like we have in Wyoming and Montana, where you've got thousands of animals on hundreds of thousands of acres. So most of these operations in Illinois are 30 to 40 acres with 15 to 25 animals.
In this area, you need about 1.5 acres per animal or per cow and calf. We have pretty good grass as opposed to like Wyoming. But that's what David was saying. Managing the land is what keeps us from having bigger herds.
I would suppose that having a ranch like this, a farm like this, there's lots of stories that come out of your day-to-day operation. I'm interested to hear of some memorable stories with your bison, whether it's transporting, getting, acclimating.
I got to tell you one on Kathleen.
Well, I'd love to hear it.
Oh.
We use 800 to 1,000 pound round bales of hay in the winter months, and we roll them out on the ground. And we have a fork on the front of the tractor. And the first winter we were putting the hay out, she was on the tractor and had gone out there. Well, she approached directly at the bull, which you don't want to do, you know. And the next thing I know, he has rammed the front of the bale on the tractor and flipped the tractor up in the air. I was watching from the side, and the front tires on the tractor went about 18 inches off the ground. I looked at that and I thought, we're selling the farm. You know, she's going to come back and she's going to be. And when she got back, she says, "Did you see that?" And I said, yeah, that was awesome. Whoa, okay, maybe we won't have to sell. You know?
Well, I learned something that day.
You did learn something.
You just back
that
off,
day.
and he was not angry. He was just telling me to get out of the way. Yeah.
So memorable for David and you, but do you have a story of your own?
I do, and it involves a cow and a calf, because these are really pretty docile animals. But in calving season, the mothers get very protective, and we were out in the truck one day, and a calf had gotten on one side of the fence line, and the mother thought that we had it. And David had gotten out in front to shoo this calf onto the other side, and all of a sudden here comes Mom full speed towards the truck and towards David looking for her calf. Luckily he was able to get back to the truck and to the protection of the truck, but just as he got there, the calf made a noise, and Mom saw him and stopped and walked
and
off.
went on her merry way.
So we learn a lot.
I'm sure you have many, many stories to share. As we wrap up our discussion today, we've got a couple of minutes. What would you like to tell viewers about the bison and carrying on this beautiful animal and the importance of this animal going forward?
To me, this animal represents America. Like you had said early, the Native Americans used this animal. They wouldn't have survived without it. There were so many uses for the entire animal. And I think that now that it's been designated our national mammal, people are interested in bringing it back. The reason that it has made the progress it has is the meat. The meat is very, very healthy. It's very lean. Many people eat it for their health. And that's the reason that there's the interest growing. But I think that if people just understand that this is our animal, it's the American animal, they are beautiful animals, they're wild, we don't want them tamed, but we would like to see more of them across the country and more understanding of them.
David?
Well, we get approached a lot by people that want to get into bison, and while there are some advantages to them, there's a lot of challenges, financial challenges. They're not as easy as cattle to get into, and people, they're not the money machine that people sometimes perceive them to be. You've got to get into them just because you like the animals and you enjoy it. And if you're thinking about getting into bison, you need to do a lot of homework and have your eyes wide open.
Or maybe contact somebody like
Yeah,
the two of
talk
you
to people that are
for
doing it.
support and for information.
Yeah, they're not the easiest thing in the world to do.
Oh. Well, David and Kathleen Ruhter of Ruhter Bison, thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
a few moments. As I said when we started this interview, this is probably one of the most unusual, shouldn't be, but probably one of the most unusual Paw Report segments we've done thus far, and we sure appreciate the information you shared
thanks
with
for
us
coming
today.
out.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
And thank you for inviting us to your beautiful farm and pasture and ranch here
Very
in
welcome.
Murdock, Illinois. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report. I'm your host, Kelly Goodwin. Until next time.
Okaw Vet Clinic in Tuscola and Dr. Sally Foote remind you to properly take care of your pets and are happy to help support the Paw Report on WEIU. Okaw Vet Clinic located at 140 West Sale Street in downtown Tuscola. More information available at okawvetclinic.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com. Additional support for the Paw Report on WEIU is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you.